Hello, this video clip here is going to give you a little idea of how to build and use a power takeoff display at your safety day and make it safe and hands-on. This particular display here was built for us by the Asmark Institute and donated to the foundation. But you're going to be able to find some pictures and plans on how to build this in the resource section of the PTO chapter here. So the thing we're going to do is talk a little bit about how it was built, why it was built. We're going to talk about the importance of the shield for the children and also for adults. And then we're also going to talk and use this twine here a little bit to give an example of how quickly things can be wrapped around a power takeoff shaft. And everybody always asks, why is there a steering wheel at the end of a power takeoff shaft? And the kids get to be the tractor. So we'll have Jana stepping up here in a minute, and she'll actually be turning that steering wheel and actually serving as the power for our power takeoff shaft, which makes it hands-on, and every child wants to run that power takeoff shaft. So give you a little peek of that here in a second. First of all, let's take a look at the display here a little bit. Power takeoff shaft, we got universal joints on both ends. As you can see, they are offset a little bit. It is not one straight line, so it gives people an idea of why these knuckles, universal joints, whatever you want to call them, how and why they are used. Looking at this as an adult safety item, the importance of the shield. There are really two styles of power takeoff shields. There are some that have a little chain on them. The chain would come down and it would wrap around the tongue of the tractor or wrap around the piece of equipment that they're pulling. So then as they're turning, Jana, if you could step in here, I'm going to have you turn this to give this an example. As that shaft is turning, the power takeoff shaft or the shield for the power takeoff shaft will stay still, will stay in one place all the time because that chain is going to keep that from turning and makes this a safe shaft. Okay, now you can stop. The other types of shaft, which this one is a shaft that will turn with the power takeoff shaft, but if anyone happens to lean against it, it will stop. So Jana, let's go ahead and turn this again. I'm going to give you an idea of how this power takeoff shaft works. So as the tractor is running, and let's say somebody comes in contact of the shield would stop, and the shaft continues to turn on the inside of the shield. Okay, thank you. So that gives you a little idea of a couple different types of power takeoff shafts. Now let's take a look at the shaft itself and the importance of that, or the importance of keeping that shaft on the power, or the shield on the power takeoff shaft, because sometimes people take this off, usually the adults. And why do they do that? It makes it easier to lubricate. Every one of these universal joints or knuckles or whatever you want to call them has a grease zerk in here. And if we had a piece of equipment right here, how tough would that be to get your grease gun clear down in here to get that grease gun on top of that grease zerk there to be able to lubricate it? Makes it tough. Sometimes people just take this off and they leave it off. You're also going to notice some shields might have a big hole in here. So then you can turn this shaft, turn the shield here and line it up with the grease zerk, and then you can grease the grease zerk through a hole in the shaft. And you're going to see the same thing on both ends. All right, so that's one thing about this. The other thing is you got to keep, periodically, you got to maintain this, just making sure that this shield will always spurn, it turns freely, it's not froze up on the shaft here, and it'll turn freely. And you can do that, and you can see right here on the top, a couple little grease nipples right here, and they're actually plastic. It's not like a regular metal grease zerks, but there's one on both ends here as I'm pointing to both of them. And you got to put a little grease in there once in a while, because that's the bushing that's riding on the shaft, that as the shaft turns, that's what this shield is riding on. and it takes a little lubrication in there periodically. Another thing of keeping this shaft in good shape, keep things out of here like this particular bolt. This was put in here just as a safety hazard to see how many people catch it. You don't want anything sticking out like this, because as that is turning, that could catch your clothes or anything, and if the shield's not working properly, you could get it wrapped around that power takeoff shaft. So keep things like this off of your safety equipment. That kind of wraps up the shield part. Now let's talk about things that the kids are really wanting to know as far as wrapping around a power takeoff shaft. And you got to realize this shaft turns at a different speed depending on if you're using an older tractor or if you're using newer machinery. Older tractors, the power takeoff shaft rotates about 540 revolutions or RPMs per minute. Newer tractors, about 1,000 revolutions per minute. Turns at a much higher speed. Another thing is the older tractors turned at a lower speed, and you might hear some of the old timers talking about, oh, I got my clothes caught on there once and I just stood still and it killed the engine. Well, on the little old putt-putt tractors, that was possible. The newer equipment, that tractor is not even going to grunt. That person's going to end up wrapped around the power takeoff shaft. They're going to end up about the size of a beach ball, and they're probably going to be dead. So the thing is, we got to teach the kids how important it is to stay away from the power takeoff shaft and how fast that could happen. This piece of twine right here, about 16 feet long. All right, and I've tied a little ribbon on the end of there so that people can see where the end of this twine is. And I'm just going to throw this out there that direction here. At this time, we're going to attach the string right here onto the shaft, and I'm using a little Velcro on here at this particular activity here, but on other types of demonstrations there might be a different way to attach the twine. But let's see how fast Jana can wrap this string up around this power takeoff shaft. Go ahead, Jana. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005, 1006, 1007, 1008, 1009, 1010. Roughly 10 seconds it took her to wrap that up around that power takeoff shaft. And I've already measured the circumference around this, so that's how I knew how much of this could be wrapped up, because a tractor would have done this in 1 second. And that's where kids get the misconception that they think they're fast. If I step over this power takeoff shaft and it catches my shoestring, am I fast enough to get that shoe off? No, I'm not. And we're going to take a look at that on a speed chart here in just a second.